Well, here we are. We made it to episode number 10. This is the Two Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. My name is Brian Weeb. I'm the owner and editor-in-chief of BCHLnetwork.ca. And this is it. Can't believe it. We've hit double digits for this podcast. So excited to have you along for the ride, and certainly do appreciate you tuning in and listening to the first 9 episodes of the Two Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. Certainly hope you'll enjoy episode number 10. It is with a member of the Nanaimo Clippers. He's the captain of the Clippers from St. Catharines, Ontario, a 20-year-old defender. We've had a run on blue liners here on the Two Goal Lead podcast. Not quite sure why that is. Only 2 forwards have been featured on this podcast since we launched back in January, but make no matter, we like the guys from the blue line. So we've got Michael Craig. He's the captain of the Clippers, off to Robert Morris University this September. Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the Two Goal Lead podcast, presented by BCHL Network.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
So your team's got the playoffs on the horizon, obviously, clinched a spot already. What are you honing in on during practice now to prepare for what's hopefully a long playoff run?
Yeah, we have playoffs coming up in a few weeks, but right now I think we're still looking to lock up that number 1 spot, and so obviously the playoffs are in the distance, but we want to make sure that we set ourselves up in a good spot here moving forward.
In terms of developing good habits ahead of the playoffs, is there anything specific that the coaching staff is working with you collectively as a group on?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of guys coming back, from our team that we had last year. And I think that, we know what it takes to make a deep run. So I think we're trying to instill those habits, with maybe some of our younger and experienced guys, and, make sure that everyone knows the expectation, moving forward to what it's going to take to get back to that, the ultimate goal.
What do you think is the main strength of this season's Clippers team?
Yeah, I think we have a deep squad. I think we have really good goaltending. I think we have a similar model to last year. I think we got some really high end guys who are producing, and our D-core is like one of the best that I've seen. And obviously, every night we get a good performance from our goaltenders, and they make it really easy on us. When
it comes to goals for and goals against, one might look at the fact that the Clippers don't have necessarily the best goals against in the Coastal Division. But is it a situation where at times this season your team has outscored some of the defensive deficiencies that it's had? Yeah, we have,
maybe early in the year, I think we talk about as a team that we might have been able to, outscore our way out of games. And I think, like you said, what we're working on as we get closer to playoffs. And I think we want to be able to, win those games. We had a few last year, 1-0, 2-1, things like that. And maybe we haven't had a ton of games like that this year, but I think it all depends on the makeup that you have. I know we have the ability and the talent to score 5 a night. And I think, as it comes down to it, I think we're trying to learn how to win different ways. And maybe that's just something that we have to work on.
The Clippers special teams this season has been a bit of a tale of 2 different stories, in the fact that the power play is top 3 in the league, whereas the penalty kill is in the bottom half. What do you think is the main difference between the power play and the penalty kill?
Yeah, I think, special teams especially, you have to ride the wave. I mean, there's some weekends where your power play is hot and, you're clicking and things are going in. And, there's other weekends where, maybe your power play is doing all the right things. You hit a post, a couple of lucky clears, and, you just can't get clicking. And, I think it goes the same thing for the penalty kill. I think our penalty kill does a good job. I think in the second half of the year, especially, we've seen those stats. We've honed in on it a little bit. And, it's been a focus for us I think lately you've been doing a really good job, and I think it's only, the buy-in's only going to get better as we head into the playoffs.
For you personally, you've taken a big step offensively this season. You're one of the top scoring blue liners in the BC Hockey League. Have you changed anything about your game to produce more offensively?
Yeah, it's definitely been, something I've been working on, thinking about, in practice and video and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think, you get older in this league. Being a 20-year-old, I think it comes with experience and, maybe seeing the game a little bit differently than I was last year, having a little bit more confidence. So, all those things contribute to that. But, there's also a lot of guys in our team who are, pretty good at putting the puck in the net and distributing. So that helps a lot too.
In looking back at your statistics, I was digging in on elite prospects, and this is like the best offensive season that I could find anywhere online. Is this the best season in terms of points that you've had since when?
Yeah, this year I've been fortunate. I found the back of the net more than I ever have, but I think that's just, like I said, I'm playing with a pretty offensive D-man and Mystery, as and he gets me the puck a lot. And I think, like I said, just being older and more confident, being able to maybe take some risks that, you weren't willing to take when I was younger. I think this year I kind of honed in on, making sure I'm able to contribute on the offensive end. I think that's going to be like a strength that I want to continue as I move on in my career.
Being in your 20-year-old season, was that something that Colin Burkus and the coaching staff there in Nanaimo leaned on you for, to say, hey, you've got the green light to make that jump offensively?
No, it never wasn't necessarily ever, a conversation that we had, but I think, in my own head, that was something that I thought that my defensive game, I had a pretty steady, that's always been my thing, is I've been pretty steady on the back end, but I wanted to, broaden my horizon a little bit and make a jump there and become, more of an elite, puck mover or elite finisher on the blue line. So it's just something I've kind of, taken a look at and hope to get better at.
You mentioned playing with Ethan Mistry there. What do you think is the strength between the two of you?
Yeah, I think we have great chemistry ever since, Ethan joined the team last year. We've been best friends since he showed up. Being both from Ontario, we have a lot alike, and both being, D-men, like we play similar style games, I think. And so it's been a treat, watching him develop the last couple of years. And I can't say enough about him. I love playing with him.
You alluded to the playoffs last season. You had 4 assists in 16 playoff games. The Clippers, of course, made it all the way to the Fred Page Cup final. What did you learn as a team from those series against Surrey, Chilliwack, Langley, and probably most importantly, Penticton?
Yeah, those that playoff run, that was one of the highlights of my hockey career. We had so much fun along the way, and I think whenever we tell stories, and I think the takeaway from that is just like how fun the playoffs are. Right, we're winning every night, and I think that's something that, the new guys in our team, like we want to experience that again. And we want to do that again. Everybody from, the players to trainers to the coaches, like we all had so much fun on that run. And so that's our goal. We want to do it again. And this time, come out on top.
There were a lot of close games in those first 3 playoff series, and even in the final against the Vs. When you look back at it, it seems like a really unique situation in the fact that you go through 3 rounds, you don't lose a game, and then you get to the final and you don't win a game. Have you ever been part of anything like that at all?
Yeah, like you said, that was a unique run. I probably won't be a part of again. I don't know if I've ever won 12 games in a row. Even in the regular season, that was, I think just speaks to the character and the group that we had, and we took each game. We never thought about a win streak or anything like that. We just took each game individually, and we won that game, moved on to the next, and unfortunately, we hit a pretty good team in the finals who was also on a pretty good streak. And, if we could do it again, we might have gone about it a different way. I know we had a lot of guys, going through a lot of stuff to get to that point in the season where guys are pretty banged up. But, hopefully this year we're going to emulate the same things that we did last year. But like I said, you got to start with game 1 and can't look too far ahead and take each game individually, and you end up adding up the wins.
It's been almost 3 years since you joined the Clippers. Can you take us through your thought process when, as an 18-year-old, you found out you were coming to Nanaimo?
Yeah, it's I'm extremely fortunate and lucky to have ended up here. It was a roller coaster to get here. With COVID and everything that happened, I was playing in the OJHL in Ontario, and COVID happened, and that team was the Buffalo team wasn't playing because of border restrictions and everything like that. And I was kind of stuck without somewhere to play. And with networking and former coaches, we're able to get a hold of Coach Burkus, and I'm fortunate enough to get a tryout here, and then stuck ever since. And it's been the best decision I made to make it out here, and obviously giving me all these opportunities to be successful. And I can't say how fortunate I am and how much I love it here.
Think back to playing in that first BCHL season, which nobody really knew when it would get started, but eventually it did, in that Port Alberni pod against the Bulldogs, Victoria, and Cowichan Valley. What is most memorable to you now, looking back, about that whole situation?
Well, I think it's, all the teammates that I had throughout that year. I think a lot of people forget about that exhibition season that we had. We played about 16 or 20 games in September, October, and those games were nowhere to be found, and no record of them. So, but, I think we had almost 2 full teams that year. We had a lot of guys that were, moving in and out of the roster at the beginning of the year. And then with all the uncertainty of the season, there's a lot of guys who took other opportunities. But by the time the pod came around, 3-4 months later, we had a fresh team. So it was an opportunity to, make 40 new friends that year that I've never met before. And a lot of guys I still keep in touch with to this day. So I think, looking back, the hockey, it is what it is. And it was difficult. I think we played 20 games in 30, 35 days, whatever it was. And hockey is difficult. The hockey was what it was, but I think, the memories that we have and like the friendships and that stuff, that's what I'll take away from that season.
Looking around at what happened with junior leagues in North America at that time, when it was announced that you would play so many games in such a short period of time, were you all just happy to be on the ice at that point?
Yeah, for sure. We didn't care where we were playing, who we were playing. It was about playing, right? We were practicing for 3, 4 months. It got pretty dry, but at the same time, we were pretty fortunate to even be, have access to the ice. And like I said, being from Ontario, I think the restrictions and things like that were a lot different. For a lot of my friends back home, they didn't even have the opportunity to skate, or rinks were closed and things like that. So when we had a season and the games were real and they counted, we were all pretty pumped up. And whatever the circumstance was, we had to play in one rink. We played the same three teams. We were all we were fortunate, and we were happy to get out there and finally play.
How much support did you get as players when it came to the mental health of navigating that whole situation?
Yeah, everyone was great. I think, like you said, I think it was different because we were just happy to be at the rink. So if it was a win, if it was a loss, it's kind of the whole COVID, everything kind of put things in perspective. And maybe the season before, maybe let's say the coaches might have been a little bit harder on a tough loss, something like that. But at this point, we were just happy to be at the rink, right? So if it was a win, we were happy. If it was a loss, we were learning from it. We were trying to get better, but at the same time, we were happy to be there. We were happy to be together. And there's a lot of people that were going through a lot worse things during that time, and we were able to play hockey. And I think the weather was great. It was May, March, wherever it was, and we were happy to be at the rink together.
Now, you were named co-captain of the Clippers in January last season to ease some of the pressure on Jack O'Brien. Now you're the captain full-time for the team. What does it mean to you to have a C on your jersey?
Yeah, it's definitely an honor. I think every time I think about this, I look back at some of the guys that wore the C before me. I think of obviously Jack O'Brien, Kovic, Ladon, those kind of guys that really helped me kind of break into this league. Coming from Ontario, I didn't know any teams. I wasn't familiar with the BCHL, so everything was completely fresh. Moving away from home, haven't had that opportunity before. So those are the kind of guys, like that leadership that they instilled, in the character in the room that really helped me get going. So obviously, I take a lot of pride in doing the same things that those guys did to help the younger guys feel comfortable. And I think that we have a great locker room this year, and I attribute a lot of our success on the ice to the room that we have.
What type of captain would you say you are?
Yeah, I think definitely just like I like to lead by example. I'm not really the type of guy to get on guys vocally or anything like that, but I think I think guys would say if you take a look at me like on the ice in the weight room or in the locker room, I try to do things the right way and lead by example.
Now, later this year, you're heading off to Robert Morris University to start your NCAA Div 1 hockey career in Pittsburgh. What was the driving force behind you choosing RMU?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to, get a commitment to play for them. And that was, the pinnacle of, my career here in the BCHL. Obviously, coming out here, that was the goal to get a Division I scholarship, right? So the BCHL is the best league in Canada to achieve that goal, in my opinion. So you look at the numbers every year, and we're pumping out commitments this year. So that was the goal coming out here, and I was fortunate enough to accomplish it. Yeah, last year I had a weird year where I thought I was playing really well, and I didn't really have too much going on in that front. And then I ended up fracturing my wrist, late in the season. I missed about 20 games at the end and only played half the year. So I was pretty bummed out. But during that injury, that's when I got in contact with, the coaching staff at Robert Morris. And, they were, willing to take a look at me. And I was, like I said, extremely thankful and for the opportunity. And I'm super excited to get down there in the fall.
In those conversations that you had with the staff for Robert Morris University, what was it about their program that was attractive to you?
I think, with everything that they've had going on with them, they've had a lot of adversity the last couple of years, obviously with the program getting shut down and then again reinstated. And I think it's a really unique situation. I've been through a couple unique situations here in Nanaimo, and I think that, with my character, I'll be able to, show up there, and I want to be part of something special and get this thing off the ground again. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there with the new program of Robert Morris. I'm really looking forward to taking advantage of.
Have you had a chance to visit the campus?
No, I haven't been down to the campus yet, but growing up, I've always been a Penguins fan, a fan of Crosby and things like that. So I've been to Pittsburgh a couple times to see a couple games. So I'm familiar with the city a little bit.
I was just about to ask you, how much are you looking forward to moving to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's going to be different than living on Vancouver Island for sure. But I'm looking forward to the change, and I couldn't be more excited to go.
In terms of your game itself, what facets do you think you need to work on the most to make a successful jump from junior hockey to the NCAA?
Yeah, I think it's the same for everybody, right? I think you go from playing, I'm the oldest guy in the league this year, and then there's going to be guys who are a lot older than me next year, right? So I think you just want to, get obviously stronger, faster, all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, especially, being a defenseman, I think that's something that you have to hone in on and, hopefully gain some weight and just getting stronger to be able to compete with, those guys every night, those older guys who have a couple of years and a little bit of size on you.
Growing up, were there any NHL players who you tried to model your game after?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say, model my game, but, like I said, I just mentioned, like I love Sidney Crosby, the way he carries himself on the ice, off the ice, work ethic, things like that. Those are the kind of things that I picked up on, defenseman, obviously, growing up, I loved watching Duncan Keith, those Stanley Cup runs. He was unstoppable. And, in today's game, I think you ask anybody, they love watching, Cale Makar, Dowling, guys like that. Those guys are awesome. So it's a lot of fun guys to watch.
What's your favorite thing about playing at Frank Crane Arena?
The fans. This year has been unbelievable with the support that we've had. It doesn't matter if we're playing Wednesday, Sunday afternoon, Friday night. We have an awesome crowd who are into it. And, the support this year has been unbelievable. I think we have, we are games and it doesn't even come close, right? Like the atmosphere that we get and, the fans are engaged and especially, this year we're doing really well and every single game, it seems like there's more and more people coming out and I can't wait to see what it's going to look like coming up this first round.
I would think it'll be pretty wild there during the playoffs. Now, moving away from Nanaimo, what's your favorite BCHL road arena to play in and why? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of great rinks, but I think, a boring answer, I love going to Alberni because like we talked about, we went to that's where the pod was for the Coastal Conference or the Island Conference, sorry. And we played, we traveled there 20 times in that month. And I think it just brings back a lot of memories and they get a pretty good crowd too. And, it's kind of fun playing the villain there, going in and everybody's all over you. And I think that's a fun one. It's a pretty, it might be smaller than the Frank Crane. I think the fans feel like they're on top of you a little bit, but I like that one. But there's also some, there's some really nice rinks on the mainland, going to Penticton last year for the finals. That was fun. They had a pretty good crowd there. And, Chilliwack's got a pretty nice arena. So there's a lot of good ones, but I think, I see that Alberni trip and, something you circle on the calendar for sure.
So this might be a different answer or at least a different perspective. What's the toughest BCHL road rink to play in and why?
The toughest. Yeah, that's a good one. I think anytime that you do those long trips, those ones are hard just because, the fatigue that gets put on you, with the bus and the hotels and everything. I think we have a pretty good road record this year actually, but as always, you got to change the game a little bit and, find a different routine when you go to those rinks. Like last year we traveled out to Cranbrook. That was a tough one, trail, but those guys, they get accustomed to it and they do it a lot. So I feel like, they might have a little bit of an advantage when teams come in, but we did a good job this year. We have a pretty long trip coming up this weekend, but those ones and the close ones, Powell River's got a pretty, it's a tough rink with a, ferry ride on the same day you play. So just, I think tough rinks, the traveling, you just got to take that into consideration.
So nothing intimidating about playing in any of the barns themselves?
No, I think, once you're playing, you're playing. And like I said, the fans are part of it, but I think, the crazier the fans are, the more fun it gets and nothing intimidating about that.
All right. Well, the playoffs certainly are going to serve up a nice helping of that for sure. Michael, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate you joining us on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
He's from St. Catharines, Ontario, captain of the Nanaimo Clippers, Michael Craig. Really, really great conversation there with Michael. Look forward to following along his career, not only in the NCAA at Robert Morris University starting this fall, but beyond that, looking at a pro contract or what have you for Michael Craig. So a great conversation there. I certainly do appreciate you tuning in. Want to remind you that you can check out the 2 Goal Lead podcast. You can like and you can follow at Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, or just check it out on bchlnetwork.ca. We do embed the podcast right there in the website if you want to check it out there as well. I know you're listening to the podcast right now, but just in case there was a more convenient, different way that you like to consume your podcasts, thought I'd let you know that there's a few options there for this very podcast as well. Also do want to encourage you to check out some of the articles that we've got going on at bchlnetwork.ca. There's a story there right now about the Surrey Eagles and their designs in the Fred Page Cup playoffs, as well one about Fraser Rogers, who was featured on last week's Two Goal Lead podcast. Chris Keck has written an article about Fraser's return from Prince George down to Penticton for this season with the Vs. That will do it for this week's episode of the Two Goal Lead podcast. Once again, sincere thanks to you for listening, for reading at the website at bchlnetwork.ca. My name's Brian Wiebe. I'm the owner and editor-in-chief of BCHL Network. If you want to join our team, you just click on Join Our Team right there on the website. We'd love to have you on board if you're looking to get your feet wet when it comes to digital media and sports journalism. All right, so drop us a note. We'd love to have you as part of the team at BCHL Network. Okay, gonna sign off now. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Two Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network, which is episode number 11.